and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 1 of Chainsaw Man. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So, I have to say, I've been really excited for Chainsaw Man for quite a while. I read the manga and I really enjoyed it, and a lot of the rumors I've heard have been that there's going to be a lot of CG in this, and CG is normally something that doesn't blend well with traditional animation. Case in point, this scene, the CG is looking rather gratuitous and kind of ugly. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that things won't be too bad, or at least, I don't know. If CG's unavoidable, then maybe it won't be so bad that it'll detract from everything else. I think optimism is probably the right approach here because, it's Chainsaw Man. There's other good aspects to it, particularly the violence, which we have been assured will not be censored in any way, so I guess if nothing else, that's something to look forward to, but maybe that first shot of CG was probably ill-advised. But, enough about the animation for right now. We're dealing with Denji here, and Denji's in a bit of a rough shape. He is severely indebted to the Yakuza. He's already sold off a bunch of body parts, and that's hardly put a dent in the hefty sum he owes. Currently some 38 million yen, which translates to, I don't know, like $380,000, give or take, That's, it's definitely a large sum of money. I guess fortunately, Denji has found that hunting devils is a reasonable way to make money. Reasonable in big quotes. So that was a very interesting opening sequence. I can't say I really like the music all that much. It's alright, not my favorite. But at the same time, I think there's some interesting stuff going on visually. So for those of you that don't know, this anime is only going to be running 12 episodes so far. And it seems to me that would indicate it's not going to be adapting very much of the story. But there were a couple characters shown off in the opening animation that leads me to believe that either it's going to be adapting more or they're really banking on a sequel here. Because they were showing off, I believe in order, the Angel Devil, the Future Devil, and the Sword Devil. And those are all characters who crop up later. And if I were in charge of this adaptation, they would be showing up beyond the 12 episode mark almost for certain. So this is an interesting little bit of dialogue here between these two Yakuza guys. Basically, the debt Denji owes has fallen to him from his father. And, the debt didn't die with him, so Denji's kind of in a bad situation. And these guys sort of tolerate Denji because he just, he listens to what they tell him, and he passes along the corpses of devils, which presumably professional devil hunters would not do, given that they are, I don't know, they've got to be not good for the local flora and fauna if they were to decompose, presumably being evil by nature. Now, speaking of devils, there's this matter of Pochita here. Obviously, it's some kind of devil, but a little marginally less dangerous devil. Or at least one that's somewhat, willing to put up with people. At the very least, he has a good relationship with Denji. So it's pretty clear that Denji leads a rather miserable life. And in a way, I think this scene sort of contrasts with what the Yakuza guys were saying about him. About how he doesn't really think for himself, he does as he's told, and he sort of sticks to his station in life. If he's dreaming about what a better life could be like, I feel like that's sort of the first prerequisite towards being your own person. Recognizing that your life isn't what you would like it to be, and wanting to make changes to it. Yeah, so the Yakuza really aren't playing around. Basically, as soon as Denji's father was cold and buried, the debt fell to him and he's going to have to start making payments. And rather hefty payments, too, 70,000 yen is about $700, I believe. That's a big amount of money when you're, a 16-year-old kid, I think? Denji's not much older than that. So it would seem as though this is how Denji and Pochita came to be friends. Pochita was in a bad way and Denji couldn't abide by that. Presumably because he also doesn't want to die. Now, for reasons that I'm not quite going to go into right now, I kind of have to wonder why precisely Pochita was injured. Was it just some random person hunting devils and they just didn't manage to finish the job, or... It's hard to say, I don't think it's ever been explained. Not that it would ever really need to be explained, but... I don't know, it's just something that sticks out in my mind. It's also interesting that Denji proposed the idea of being a devil hunter. Because, at face value, I don't see why the Yakuza would be willing to hire him for something like that. Because, what inherent use is the corpse of a devil, really? I mean, maybe there are medicinal properties or something, or maybe it's just superstition. I'm sure some people somewhere would be willing to pay for it. It really only seems to go from bad to worse for Denji. As bad as things already are, now he's hacking up blood. Apparently that's how his mom died, so... in all likelihood, Denji might not be long for this world. Now, that was kind of an interesting little angle, showing the car upside down like that. I wish they'd at least let me dream as the car drives upside down. How serendipitous. Now, I have to say, I'm still not a fan of the CG here, but in terms of CG cars, I've definitely seen worse, so I guess that's a good sign, kind of. So unfortunately, I feel like Denji's sort of dog-like nature of being extremely loyal is not serving him particularly well here. These are Yakuza, after all. And above all, they are criminals. Yeah, the way the guy's just sort of talking to him like this, that's really not a good sign. Oof. Yeah, this is not a good turn of events here. Not only has Denji been impaled, but Pochita has been impaled too. Yeah. So I guess the Yakuza guy wasn't totally lying. There's a devil here, but turns out it's going to be the one doing the slaying rather than vice versa. Alright, so we finally get some, actual gore and bizarre stuff that is typical of Chainsaw Man. So the zombie devil appears to have a pretty good gig going. It just sort of offers people power, and when they accept it, turns them into mindless zombies. I have to say, Denji, he really got a good deal, because it doesn't really seem like he gave up anything other than a bit of blood when he made that deal with Pochita. All these Yakuza guys who made a deal with the zombie devil, I mean, I guess there's upsides if you want to be relentlessly optimistic. You don't have to worry about anything anymore because you no longer have a mind. But at the same time, to willingly become a zombie, I think, is, I don't know, indicative of low intelligence or something. Yeah, here we go. Things are starting to get real gnarly. Unfortunately, that stab through the abdomen, that set him up poorly. Denji probably wasn't going to be able to get away at all. So, I think now's probably an appropriate time to talk a little bit about why I like Chainsaw Man so much. And in part, I think it's probably because it's the best adaptation of Devilman we've ever received. Devilman is something that I hold in pretty high regard. I read the manga, I liked it a lot, and it's never really had a good adaptation, but Chainsaw Man sort of does a lot of the same things as Devilman, basically like a fairly ordinary, meek, mild kind of person gets caught up in this devil business, and ultimately things hit the fan. Obviously things have started to hit the fan right now, with Denji being essentially killed and hacked into pieces, but that's not quite the end so far. You know, Denji's sort of expressing how, if he ever dies, which is in all likelihood probably going to happen, he doesn't want Pochita to be poor off for it. So, you know, when he dies, Pochita can have his body. And that's sort of what happens in Devilman, albeit in reverse, you know. A devil tries to possess the main character, and through sheer force of will, he manages to steal the devil's powers, essentially gaining the body of a devil, but retaining his soul and moral compass and all that. So, you know, that's sort of what Denji here is proposing. You know, that after he's dead and buried and all that, and his debt is erased, Pochita can take his body and live a good life in his stead. But it seems like Pochita's not quite content to just sort of let that happen. Or rather, you know, it's not going to happen the way Denji drew it up, so Pochita has to improvise here. And he's sort of sacrificing his own body to regenerate and reintegrate all those pieces of Denji. Now, I do remember when I first started reading Chainsaw Man, I kinda struggled with the first chapter, and this was actually the place where I kinda lost interest initially, where Pochita just started talking, and it's like, you couldn't talk before now? Like, you just decided now's the time to start talking? I don't know. That struck me as a little bit out of left field here, but I guess it could have been more, I don't know, metaphorical. I guess they're sort of talking within Denji's mind rather than physically talking. But regardless of any of that, the upshot here is that Denji is both alive and himself. And given that he now has Pochita within him, he's sort of a whole greater than the sum of the parts that make him up now. So Denji's not playing around anymore. He means business, you know. Those Yakuza guys, if they're all zombies and he kills them all, then that's effectively the same as having his debt wiped out. And not a bad deal, honestly. Of course, whatever he was trying to do, it doesn't seem that he was quite fast enough. At least not initially, anyways. Yeah, you know, it's kind of unfortunate that this is CG, but that said, it's still not the worst, most egregious CG I've ever seen. Now, I do find it interesting that the zombie devil is sort of trying to rationalize this, like, you know, you're a devil, you're one of us, we shouldn't fight, but, you know, Denji doesn't care. He cannot be reasoned with. And I do appreciate how he just sort of like gouges the one eye out and starts bleeding gratuitously all over the place. That's good stuff. That's what I'm here for. There we go. It's nice to see all those detached body parts flying all over and spraying blood. That's exactly what I'm here for. Because, like, the Devilman manga was really gory too, and some of that was toned down in the various adaptations. To their detriment, I might add. You know, it really does seem like whoever gave that announcement, some representative from Studio Mappa, you know, they were telling the truth here that they definitely weren't going to be censoring things. Granted, I feel like there still could be a bit more blood, you know, but all things considered, this is a decent showing. There we go. So Denji just sort of chopped the zombie devil in half. So I feel like all the zombies, if their master's dead, shouldn't they all die as well? I mean, I guess not, since they are already dead by virtue of being zombies, but Denji seems to have finally picked up on what's going on here, He owes money to all these guys, and once they're all little more than mincemeat, then, that's it then. He's a free man. It just occurred to me, I don't think we saw the right side of Denji before he transformed into Chainsaw Man after being revived. Because I do recall, at least initially, I was confused why he got his eye back, but I think that's just because I was reading too quickly. But I don't think we've actually seen him yet. The idea was that, I guess thanks to Pochita, he had regenerated all those body parts he ended up selling. So presumably he has all those other organs back too. You mentioned selling off a kidney earlier. So this is some serious business. Once the people in black suits show up to where there's a devil, you can pretty much assume that they mean business. And given that the only devil around is now Denji, he better assure them that he is, if nothing else, at least mostly human. Human enough to cooperate and be a functioning member of society. So they've come to the determination that not only is Denji a human, but he's not possessed by the devil either. So it seems like Denji really truly lucked out here, He now has the powers of a devil, but also his own agency. Of course, as with anything, there is a price. He's essentially being given an offer he can't refuse. Either you join up with us, the Public Safety Committee, and work for us as a human, or we kill you as a devil. So in a way, Denji's just sort of gone from owing the Yakuza a lot of money to being indebted to these people instead. At the very least, they're offering to make sure he eats well, but at the same time, he's really just trading one master for another. But then again, Denji seems to be fairly servile and docile in nature, so it might work out for him. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.